This man is so mean to me. Anyway, happy new comic book day, geeks, and welcome to issue 31 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasonowski, and I am the writer of Janitor Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire.
We have so many polls this week.
We sure do.
Let's start going through, and no issue ones in large list of books. We're going to be talking about Heartpiercer number 2, Aint No Grave number 2, Crocodile Black number 2, Morningstar number 3, Sinister Sons number 5, and Monsters Are My Business number 3.
That's right. And in the Creator Corner this week, we have a friend joining us on the pod, Reed Hinckley-Barnes, the creator of Hero of Legend and Into the Deep, and the letter on Tights, Control Z, and Julius the Werehound.
And if you enjoy that interview or any other part of this episode, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod. Where you can find me personally on all the same socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
And now, on to the news. So to start off the news this week, we have a little bit of I'm going to say sad news regarding a title that we are currently reading on the podcast. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about the fact that Joshua Williamson is quitting Batman and Robin and Green Arrow, but not yet. So,
hold up real quick. That is such a quitting feels so dramatic.
Yeah, I know. That's why I read it like that. It's such a dramatic title. And
People
Bleeding Cool is usually like
all the time.
Yeah, but I feel like Bleeding Cool is usually pretty good about not having like super clickbaity titles, but this was such a dramatic one for them. And like pretty far down the line. I don't know where Batman and Robin is at right now, but Batman and Robin 13 is going to be his final issue on Batman and Robin, and Green Arrow 17 is going to be his final issue on Green Arrow. Basically, he said that it was his choice to leave both books. It was a hard choice, but he's a little bit burnt out, and he has an absurd workload because if you also know he's doing like all the G.I. Joe stuff for Energon, and he's got a ton of other stuff. He's doing a ton of books. So I think we talked about the fact that it felt like he was doing just an unsustainable amount of books. Yeah. So this makes sense, but it will sadly mean that we only get 5 more issues of his Green Arrow.
Which is
obviously
weird.
The book will continue.
Because I guess maybe if they're doing like a little filler issue for the last issue of volume 3.
The issue 13 is an absolute power issue. So then it's probably a 4-issue arc to cap it off.
That tracks. Well, that is a bummer.
And it looks like it's weird that because it doesn't specifically state it, but in his quote he says Sean returns to wrap up our story. Sean, obviously, Sean Izeski, right? Who's the artist who started on Green Arrow. But that finished off with that annual is going to be epic. So while it doesn't specifically state that there's going to be an annual, I guess my assumption would be there's going to be a Green Arrow annual that comes out after issue 17 that will be
that makes sense,
like their send off,
the kind of 6th issue.
Yeah, but there's no specific mention of the annual outside of in his quote where he says that annual is going to be epic, which
I mean, I guess
implies that an annual is involved in some way.
That's like you said, a little bit of a bummer, but also I feel like with so much of his Green Arrow run, it's been like I really like how he's writing these characters, but there's just constantly something where I'm like, but I feel like this is a problem here, this is a problem here. So like I am excited to have someone new on the book, not because I don't like Joshua Williamson's writing, because I think he writes a phenomenal Ollie, but I'm just excited to see some fresh ideas going.
I think it's also, part of the thing of like when you're doing a monthly book, especially a DC Marvel monthly book, and then you're doing like these big miniseries for indie things, like those you're spending so much time planning out every detail, and it's like, well, for the monthly book, I can just do a monthly book and then do the next monthly book, and so it ends up being a little bit less focused. So definitely it'll be interesting to see who jumps on. I did when I had first, because I'd seen this story earlier today, and when I'd seen it posted about, one of the top things I saw somebody write is maybe Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo will jump over to Green Arrow, because the timeline matches up pretty exactly from when
It does.
Tom
I
Taylor's
wouldn't
jumping off of
be
Nightwing. So,
super against that. I need to mull over that for
and
a moment.
apparently Tom Taylor loves Green Arrow because, like, you know, he brought another Green Arrow into Injustice despite the fact that he had to kill off the main one because of the games. And he has spoken about wanting to do Green Arrow, I believe, before. So
I think that would be fun. And I think it would, depending on what the like arc of Volume 3 is, I think it could also work with what Taylor's had success with Nightwing, which is like, hey, we've shaken this character to their core. Now let's just have some good old-fashioned fun with them. So, like, I think that could also fit well with Ollie having been through some trials and tribulations in the past 2 volumes. And then if we're kind of...
You just had a beach party, Katie. I don't know what you're talking about. I just saw a beach party in that last issue.
It was far too long.
He seems to be doing just fine to me. I think he's feeling great.
I said in the past 2 arcs. In the last issue, he was doing just totally fine. But what I will say is I wonder how that'll match up with the new Absolute line coming out, the Scott Snyder thing. I wonder if they'll, like, keep the Green Arrow series going. Do we have confirmation that they're going to keep it as an ongoing?
Yeah, right now there's confirmation that the series is going to continue past Joshua Williamson.
Interesting.
Departing. Both of the series, actually, Batman and Robin and Green Arrow, will both be continuing. So, I don't know if you have much on Batman and Robin. I don't really.
I don't, because I fucking hate Damian Wayne. I don't need to read that boy interacting with Bruce. I'll read him interacting with Dick and be very happy about it. I don't need to read him interacting with Bruce.
This is Katie's feelings on, like, a solid 70% of the Bat family.
Look, the thing is, I, in my soul, am a Bruce Wayne hater in terms of how he interacts with most of the Bat family. With Dick, it works because he's like, okay, you get one. You get to be like your grumpy doom and gloom man, but you can have your one, like, pride and joy of your life child. And you can have a wonderful relationship with him. But, like, come on, Jay, you think Bruce loves Tim the way he does Dick? No one loves Tim. I mean, a lot of people.
I was about to say nobody loves Tim. Tim is an unloved, unnecessary
He has very
character.
Devout fans. But
he does have
truly...
very devout fans. He's a useless character. And the thing is, he wasn't a useless character. Damian rendered him a useless character in, like,
which is
his
one of the
placement
reasons I hate
as the
Damian.
Robin. And his personality rendered him a useless foil for Batman because they have the same personality. And you can't get away with that.
No.
They are just the same character. Anyway. Just turn into a Tim rant. But just talk about Joshua Williamson at DC. The last little thing is I do believe he's also writing Superman, and he will continue to be writing Superman. So it's not a clean departure from DC Comics in any sense.
That tracks. And honestly, I love this form. I hope that this is the type of thing that I hope that this helps to, like, normalize leaving books when you just are done. You know?
Yeah.
Like, he's burnt out. Let him be burnt out and
I hope it normalizes, like, him leaving a book and it continuing instead of he left Green Arrow #1. Who said Green Arrow #1? Let's do Green Arrow.
I will say I feel like DC isn't as bad about that as Marvel.
They are not as bad as Marvel. They're still bad.
Not as bad as Marvel. But they are still bad.
They're still bad. But that's the thing. Marvel will do it with the same creative team. That's what makes them bad. They won't even change the creative team and they'll go back to one. DC, when somebody leaves, is like, this is our shot. This is when we go back to #1. We have an excuse. Let's do it.
No, that is very sad. But do we have any other news for today?
Yeah. Yes. We have some fun news.
Fun news
about a new indie title.
I don't see how it can be more fun than making fun of Tim.
That's true. But I'm going to mention it because I always like to, when there's an announcement of a book that I think I'm going to talk you into us reading on the podcast, I tend to do it in the news segment. So we have a new...
put up very little fight.
We have a new indie series launching by Daniel Warren Johnson and Riley Rossmo called "The Moon is Following Us." So
I
the
mean, I
moon
love it
is following
already.
us. Yeah, this is also the next jump into like, and we talked about this when he was re-releasing his like webcomic as a
Mhm.
you know book through Image. This is Image Central again, not Skybound, which is
There you go,
I guess a
Daniel Warren
furthering of
Johnson.
I guess when you're as big as Daniel Warren Johnson has become, you don't need to give away some of your IP to Skybound
Yeah.
when you're doing a creator-owned book. So makes sense. But so yeah, it's going to be a 10-issue limited series by Daniel Warren Johnson as the writer, Ryle Rossmo as the artist, and Mike Spicer as the colorist.
I think he did the
And it's
coloring
going to
on
be launching
Transformers,
in
didn't he?
September. Yes, he's doing the coloring on Transformers. That is correct. But do you want our little blurb?
I would love nothing more than a little blurb.
Sam and Duncan Lamar love their 6-year-old daughter Penny more than anything in the whole world. But half a year ago, she was taken by the Cascade, an evil force they barely understand. Now Sam and Duncan must fight side by side with the magical beings Penny cherished to try and get her back before she's gone forever. And the covers for this are so much fun. There's some pages that look so much fun. There's a frog lad with an eye patch and a crown.
Please tell me about the
It's
covers. Paint me a word picture.
Okay. So we have the main cover,
Uh-huh.
which I assume is by Riley Rossmo,
Mhm.
which is essentially you got the father in like power armor looking stuff,
Hell yeah.
and he's like over his wife, who's wearing a Viking helmet,
Amazing.
who is holding their daughter in her arms, and the daughter's hair has like turned into goop and is like floating upwards, and
Ooh.
they're all on top of like a pile of debris and weapons that has a giant snake coiled around it.
I'm sorry, can I just get a hell fucking yeah. Hell yeah, what a rad fucking cover. Jesus
Is that not
Christ.
everything though that like Daniel Warren Johnson is involved with? Just makes you want to say hell fucking
Hell
yeah.
yeah. Hell fucking
Full
yeah.
credit to Riley Rossmo for doing this cover, but it feels
Yes.
like a Daniel Warren Johnson like image, very
Yes.
different style. We then have the Daniel Warren Johnson cover, as you would probably expect him to be doing a
Yes.
variant cover for his book, which has the mother swinging a battle axe with the daughter on her shoulders, and the father is jamming a sword into like there's like a horde of like faceless enemies that you can't really tell what they are, like those like kind
Mhm.
of silhouetted colored
Yeah.
enemies that will be used on a cover. And then the frog lad with the eye patch and the crown is just blowing somebody to holy hell with a giant gun.
Can I just say, can I, if I may, if just hell fucking yeah. Hell fucking yeah.
Like I said, I
Yeah.
didn't think this was going to be one that it was going to be hard to talk you into reading.
No. I mean, the title alone had me fully hooked. The creative team, great. I don't remember anything that the artist has done, but Daniel Warren Johnson, incredibly talented man. Do you have some credits for him? That'd be great.
Cowboy Ninja Viking, Deathbed, Green Wake, and Bedlam. Wesley Dodds Sandman, Harley Quinn, Constantine, Martian Manhunter, and Tim Drake Robin are what we've got for Riley Rossmo. And then
Wait, is this the
I
person
don't
that
think I
does the weird, the main artist on that recent Tim
I don't
series? Because I
I
will throw
don't
out
think so.
because
Or
remember we
maybe
read
it is.
the part of, I think it was the summer special last
Yeah,
year.
he did that. He did that Etrigan and
The Etrigan and Green Lantern one, and it was phenomenal.
it was awesome.
And the art really,
Yeah,
really worked
yeah.
for it.
I
So
don't know.
I'd
It
be
doesn't
super
look like
jazzed to
the
see.
art from his art doesn't look like the art from the Tim book that you had shown me, but maybe it
How do you
is. Maybe
spell his
that Tim
last
book was
name?
just like a different. Rossmo.
I'm so curious. Because I think it is.
Ooh, I'll be so interested to see that on an indie book. Yeah, that's
Right?
him.
Where you can like
He did
lean
the
into
Shadow over Coast City.
stylized
By the
shit.
way, is the Shadow over Coast City. It was the Etrigan and Green Lantern story that we both loved.
That we
so
we
much.
really specifically liked the way that his art worked in it after not loving how it looked for Tim's book. So yeah,
Yeah.
I am very, very, very intrigued by this book.
Yeah, I'll be very interested to see how we feel about a full indie title. Also, $3.99 title.
You
Big
know,
dub
you
there.
love to see it.
With a 32-page first issue.
I was gonna say, do we know if it's oversized? Slightly
We got
oversized. Phenomenal. But we have so many indie books that we love. Do we want to go talk about them in the pull list rack?
Let's do it.
All right, we have some rad pulls to check out this week. We've got Crocodile Black, number 2, Heartpiercer, number 2, Aint No Grave, number 2, Morning Star, number 3, Monsters Are My Business and My Business is Bloody, number 3, and Sinister Sons, number 5. Daddy's Home. That's what the front of that comic says.
Home. It is.
But of course, that's not all we picked up this week. Jim Bird,
no.
What did you get?
Yes. We got Ghost Lore, number 11.
Mr. Cullenbun.
Mr. Cullenbun. Exo Manowar Invictus, number 2.
I don't know who's writing that one.
Neither do I, actually. I haven't. I have not read the first one yet of the renumber. Green Lantern and Star Sapphire. Well, it's Green Lantern, but they've added in Star Sapphire. Number
Joshua
12.
Williamson?
No.
Oh.
Jeremy Adams.
Jeremy Adams. I get the two of them confused. Both of their names start with a J.
That really is not enough reason to get those confused.
Okay, also Joshua Williamson is writing Green Arrow, and what's his name? Adams is writing Green Lantern.
Transformers number 9, which is
Daniel Warren Johnson. I know that one.
Yeah. Something Epic, number 11.
I don't remember who's doing that one. Not even close.
Cannot pronounce the last name. Kudry. It's Sizemon Kudry.
You couldn't pronounce the first name.
I'm sorry.
Either.
It's a Polish name. It's a Polish name, and yes, I am Polish, but that doesn't mean I can pronounce them. Oh. The Incredible Hulk 13, which is Philip Kennedy Johnson, if you're just going to keep going through the people.
Good old PKJ.
The Valiants, number 2.
No idea.
And TMNT, Saturday Morning Adventures, Usagi Yojimbo.
Oh, is that, Oh, I don't remember her name. Isn't it
Sarah Meyer? But I don't think she
Sarah
did the one shot because there's still a normal issue coming out this month.
I did my best.
You did. No, you were correct. Did. Sarah Meyer does do the Saturday Morning Adventures series with Eric Burnham doing the writing.
Rad.
But Katie, what did you get this week?
I also got Transformers because I'm still reading it, even if I don't want to talk about it. I got Gotham by Gaslight, the Kryptonian Age, number 1.
You got to hold that cover a little closer up for people, Katie. You got to get that closer to the camera.
Here you go, audio listeners. Here's that beautiful cover. It's green.
It's a nice looking cover.
It's a nice looking cover. They also, I was very tempted. They re-released Gotham by Gaslight. I literally have all the issues of it. Like, it's like 3 issues,
and you still got them?
And I have a trade. No, I didn't get it, actually, because I showed self-control. No, I didn't. I easily was talked into getting Scarlet from the G.I. Joe line. I asked my comic man, hey, do I need to read the other G.I. Joe books to know what's going on in this? And he goes, oh, well, they're all connected. And I said, but do I really need to read the other ones to understand? He goes, not the first issue, I guess. I'm like, oh, you twist my arm. You sold it. Again, very easy.
I'm not letting myself buy it until I finish the previous 2 miniseries. I am like, Joseph, you need to start catching up on these before you keep buying the issues of them.
That caught my attention. And then old Dick Tracy number 2 from Mad Cave.
Did you read issue 1?
I have issue 1.
I knew you had it. I wanted to know if you had read it yet.
I have not read it yet, no. It's in my pile of like, oh, you got these at C2E2, you should read them.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
It was just a legitimate question because I was going to ask how it was.
It's a fair thing. I'm surprised that you didn't pick it up with your love of Green Hornet. Like, because they both wear a hat and wear predominantly one color.
I have no reference for Dick Tracy, so
That's
it's like,
fair.
you know,
I read a
I
lot of
don't.
Dick Tracy in the Saturday morning like funnies in the newspaper or the Sunday morning, I guess, in the newspaper.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
we talked about this at some point. I don't remember. I
Probably.
don't remember if it was
Yeah,
on podcast or off podcast, but we talked about this at some point.
that tracks. But do you
Yeah.
have thoughts on the order in which we should discuss the books that we both got and are going to discuss?
I think we start with Sinister Sons. I think we start with
I
the
like
DC.
starting with DC. I feel like that makes it easy.
I don't know what the publishers are though now. I know we have a couple dark horses.
We have a couple dark horses. I think Heartpiercer and Monsters Are My Business.
Yes. And then is Aint No Grave Image?
Yes.
Okay. What's Crocodile Black? Is that Image as well?
Oh, God damn it. Ugh, okay, I've got them all here. All right. Crocodile Black is Boom. And then we have Mad Cave with Morningstar.
Yes. Okay, so I think we finish off with Aint No Grave.
Okay.
Because, yeah. Then I'm gonna
do Heartpiercer right before.
Heartpiercer.
Yeah.
Yes. Then Monsters Are My Business right before that. Crocodile Black right before that. And we'll do Morningstar second. So it looks like this. Like this.
Wow. It looks like that. I'm glad that I can see just the publishers.
Yeah.
Also that you have them kind of backwards for, like, you have the last one on top.
It's mirrored.
No, but you have it on top.
Oh, on top? Yeah, I have it on top. It's because I was trying to do like the left to right.
Oh,
thing, you know?
well, you failed. So
when I was looking at it, and I had to show this side of the covers because corner boxes, and that's the whole point of corner boxes.
Well, I'm glad that we got this sorted out. Let's jump over to Sinister Sons.
Let's do it.
Phenomenal. Sinister Sons number 5. It's a fatherly fracas as Sin Sun confronts Sinestro. Avast, ye swabs! The Sinister Sons continue their galactic melee on a mission to Korugar to confront Sinestro and prove once and for all that Sin Sun is the one true heir to the throne of fear and power in the galaxy. But to make it there, the boys will need to walk the plank in a battle for their lives against a ship of ruffian space pirates. Pull up a buccaneer and hold on to your poop decks to find out what happens next. Did they... I feel like the pirate fight was last issue.
Yeah, they definitely just... That was in there a little bit, I guess.
Huh. Well, anyway, the writer here, hopefully not of the blurb, is Peter J. Tomasi of Super Sons, Green Lantern Corps, and Superman. The artist is Vasco Georgiev of Amazon's Attack, Batman Urban Legends, and Xena, Warrior Princess. The colorist is Tamara Bonvillian, and the letterer is Rob Lee. Jay, Sinestro's here.
Yes. Sinestro's here.
Give us your thoughts.
This book proved something to me, which is that every book gets better if you just plug Sinestro into it. but in all seriousness, it really does feel like what this book needed was Sinestro. Like, it feels like his presence fixed so many of the like problems we had with this book, and this issue just really, I think, got things on track. Like, the dynamics are immediately better with Sinestro there.
Yes.
Like, because the way that Sin Sun and Lorzad are playing off of each other, like, with how they want to portray themselves to Sinestro. Lorzad kind of being wary of mentioning his father because he doesn't know if Sinestro and Zod have beef, and Sin Sun is just too scared to tell Sinestro that he thinks he is his son, but he still plans to steal his blood to test it, which is hilarious. The best use of Major Tom in this series has been Sinestro just bodying him and treating him like the most insignificant bug in the world, and it was such a good way to immediately be like, oh yeah, no, Sinestro is just important because everyone else feels less important than him when he's here, and he commands, which is so cool for a villain in a comic book, because I feel like outside of the like huge heavy hitting like, you know, dominant world threats, like often the recurring supervillains don't really feel all that intimidating. You know, we kind of come upon them, it's like, it's this guy again, this guy's the bad guy again. I immediately felt the presence of Sinestro in this book in like that big, this dude is so ridiculously powerful and like you should be afraid of him way.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I just loved what he did to the dynamic. And the biggest thing is we mentioned that they were kind of palling around in this giant whale and it felt directionless. This feels like we finally have direction for the series. So yeah, and the art is great as usual.
The art is so wonderful.
Very good. Like
what I will say is that I agree with literally everything you just said, but with the added kind of rain cloud of this is issue 5 of 6. Like, I the end of it says the conclusion, which I assume he means the end of the series as well. Just because it's not, I don't think it was billed as an ongoing. Do you remember?
I didn't think it was a 6-issuer though. I don't know. Maybe it is the
I mean, it's at the very least the conclusion of the arc. And yeah, I like what we got in this issue so much, but I'm like, oh man, I wish that we didn't spend 3 issues inside of a whale and got to do more of this.
No, I fully agree with that. It does look like because there's nothing solicited after 6. Yeah, in the final issue. Yeah, that's not great. That I didn't even think about that. This is my thing. Like, despite the fact that I'm so used to miniseries, my brain still assumes that things aren't miniseries because I don't like it.
You're a fool. Everything's a miniseries now, even if they don't say it is. But yeah, I really like what we got in this, and I would like to yet again talk about how much better Sin Sun's design is in the book than on the covers. The covers, great art. I love them dearly. But his ugly ass haircut destroys me every time. He actually cuts his hair in this issue, finally. And it looks so much better than it does in like the cover character design. And I'm like, good for you, buddy. You don't look like a fool. But it also gets so like stakesy because so much of the stakes of this book are like the children's emotional stakes. And being confronted by Sinestro is like, you can't get higher stakes for Sin Sun than that. Like, whether or not Sinestro like kills Major Tom, which wasn't really like on the table really, is like completely immaterial compared to how is Sinestro going to react to Sin Sun, or how is Sin Sun going to react to Sinestro. And I feel like we get so much good that in this, and it feels like we really get to feel what this book is supposed to be about, which is super fun, and I like it a whole lot. As a question, though, Major Tom presents himself in like a sort of like fancy way. He like calls himself a space ranger, and I am yet again confused. Should we know who Major Thomas J. Newton,
we Googled
Space
it,
Ranger,
and
is?
like,
and it seems
back
like
when it was just Major Tom, and it feels like the answer was no. I'm wondering if like
no,
with this full assertion, if there's like maybe like an Adam Strange thing that like connects to that or something like that. Because I'm thinking like it's not a Green Lantern thing, as far as I'm aware. Because like Green Lanterns really don't interact with a space. Like that'd be weird to have a Space Rangers be a thing when the Green Lanterns are a thing. So yeah, I don't know what that's meant.
All I'm saying is the only like Space Ranger I know of is literally Buzz Lightyear.
The vibe that I have gotten from it in general is like it feels like a wink wink nudge nudge thing where like he's somebody from a different thing, who they can't use, and they're using like a parody version, but I just don't know who they're parodying. So
me either. It's very odd, but I still love Major Tom and his whale. We love Melville in this house. But are you ready to slap a numbered rating on Sin Sun's number 5?
I am. Sinestro makes everything better. I gave this an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it a ton. Like you said, Sin Sun's finally kind of gets to the peak of his emotional stakes here. I thought the dialogue in this issue was just amazing all around. Like every character interaction felt so good in this issue, and it got me jazzed.
And what I really liked about the dialogue, not to distract myself from giving it a numbered rating, spoiler alert, I also gave it an 8 out of 10 the first time we've like actually seen eye to eye on a Sinister Sons book. But yeah, I feel like the dialogue did such a good job of both being very good dialogue while also matching the kind of like tone of the book, which is kind of silly, a little it's a book about two young boys, and it doesn't feel like the dialogue gets good because it gets like grown up or anything. It's just good within that tone, you know?
Because it feels like it's the nice thing about having Sinestro there, because Sinestro is like the conflict of the tone, because
Mm-hmm.
his tone doesn't match the tone of the book. Like, it's like not like he shows up and suddenly starts playing into their antics or anything. Like,
No, he
he
does
is
not
literally like
yeet.
suspending Major Tom half the time and be like, stop being an idiot so that I can have a serious conversation with these people, because I'm not dealing with all the bullshit you three are doing, you
Yeah.
know?
But I feel like he also
So
doesn't have like he's not like dropping F bombs or anything or like speaking in
no, no,
super
no. It's just a
mature
nice like
ways. It's like very good writing for like a serious
yeah.
character in a kid's book.
It just feels like you need that serious character
Yes,
to
agreed.
have something to be like, ah, this is why this is goofy, because it's not the
Yes,
standard. Like, it is
exactly.
goofy because this man is serious. Um, but yeah, we're in too deep, I think, for a pull list rec on an issue 5 of 6
Oh,
miniseries. But
absolutely.
honestly, the funny thing is, when I read this issue, because I was thinking about this, I was like, I feel like if I was to recommend this to somebody, and my brain was still under the impression that it was an ongoing for whatever reason, I was like, I feel like I tell them to read the backups of the Green Lantern book, then read issue 1, and then jump to this issue. Like,
Honestly,
that is
I
how
don't
I
even
would
think you
tell
need
them to
issue
read
one.
Sinister Sons.
I
Well,
think
I
that
feel
if
like
you were
the
intrigued
Sin
by
Sons
Sinister
meaning is
Sons and
important.
haven't read any of it, pick up issue 5. You
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
miss that
I would read
much.
the backups, because honestly, if you're talking about Sin Sun's arc, it really goes from the backups to this issue
Mhm.
for like the continuation of the arc. It starts in that, and we don't really hit it again until here. Like, he even finally pulls out the gun again to steal the blood, which was like
Yeah.
the entire thing of that, the backup. So really, just that's the continuation. But yeah, I don't know
Well,
if I'd call this a
incredibly
full
fun.
Polish rec, but
No.
I think it was a very good issue.
Yeah. Wonderful.
In any
Are we
case,
ready to talk about Morningstar?
let's do it. Issue number 3. Morning Star number 3. Maribeth Garrett has left the trail and lost her way in search of her still missing brother Charlie. What finds her in the Kootenai forest drives her deeper into fear and further from her mother into the unforgiving Montana wilderness. Jolene's fruitless search for her son Charlie continues, but her path is lit by powerful memories of her deceased husband's love. We've got a writer duo on this book, Tim Daniel and David Andre, who have co-written together End After End and Denizen. The artist is Marco Finnegan of 007 and Night People. The colorist is Jason Wordy, and the letterer is Justin Birch, who we will see once again on one other book this week. But Katie, we've enjoyed Morningstar so
We
far.
have enjoyed Morningstar. And I feel like the
How'd you
thing that
feel
I
about it?
kept saying about Morningstar was I want it to lean more into like the weird supernatural stuff. And we certainly get more of the weird supernatural
Yep,
stuff in this
yep,
issue.
yep.
We get like forest apparitions, we get weird like hallucinations. It's super rad, and I feel like a part of that is the way that this team works in concert with each other. Like the one of the page that you just showed up showed a really good example of that, where the like dialogue bubbles for these weird kind of forest hallucination apparition things are so well done. They're like echoed of each other, and the way that the like broken speech is written within them, the way that they are put on the page, the way that like the letterer designed the bubbles, and the way that the effect works, it just all works together so well to do what I think can be pretty difficult with comics, which is make things say things in a creepy way. Like I feel like a lot of times you just kind
Yeah.
of get like the black dialogue bubble, and it's like, okay, now we know that it's supposed to be scary, but this actually feels scary when you read it on the page, which is I think a really unique thing that they managed to pull off with this book. I also very much dig I don't think it's a spoiler. It happens pretty early on. The mom has these kind of like flashbacks and then visions, and they work really well together to kind of drive home the
Oh yeah.
relationship between Jolene and her husband, to then kind of flip it on its head and show this darker side of the way that that love, the way it can be made into a scary thing with things not being quite right. And I think that they've really they have amped up the spookiness factor. My gripe is
Oh.
none of it seems to have to do with the weird deer at the end of issue 1. Like, remember when the deer stood up?
Issue 2, right?
Issue 2, yes, yeah. At the end of issue 2, when the deer, like, stood up and
Yes.
did a weird thing. And I'm like, okay, I feel like that's a little bit...
I kind of forgot about the deer. The funny thing
I
is,
feel
I
like
sat
it's
down
a
and I was
little
like,
bit
okay, what happened
too
last issue?
different
And I was like,
from...
okay, weird deer.
Yes. It was
And
the
then I
weird
forgot about
deer.
it promptly when reading the
I
issue.
dig the weird deer so much, and I really like these apparitions a lot. I feel like they're just not quite the same, and I want to know why.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything you said. I felt like this issue was really when the series, like, kind of got going. It felt
Mhm.
really like now we're in the heart of what's actually happening. Like, well, you know, when you read the like pitch for the whole book or the blurb for the whole book, when they're like, read Morningstar, this is what's happening. It's like now we're
Mhm.
in the what's happening and not in
Yes,
the
yeah.
setup anymore, which is really really cool. And also, like, I think two-page spreads in this book, and like,
Yes.
God, this book just does the best two-page spreads
They do
right now.
such
Like,
a
they
good
are
job.
so ridiculously good, and like everything works so well in tandem, and it's just those bubbles in the art with the coloring that you get, and then the writing behind them, like, works so well. It feels so like together, and there's I, there's some really like creepy stuff or like
Mhm.
unsettling stuff on the back half of this issue. There's unsettling stuff in the front half, but like the back half gets, I'm not gonna kind of
Yeah.
spoil, but gets um very uncanny. But yeah,
Yes.
I really really enjoyed this issue, and yeah, I agree with your one little gripe. I really wasn't thinking about it a ton, but yeah, the deer didn't really play in, but what did play in was really really freaking cool, and
Oh
I am
yeah.
excited. But I'm gonna toss it back to you now for a number.
I'm gonna be Gabby a little bit before doing it though, because I forgot that I had another thing that I wanted to say.
You're stalling
Uh,
for time. Oh no no okay,
I
yeah, no
know.
hit on whatever point you want to hit on. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
That's fine.
Um, I feel like I was a little off put by the pace of the book in the first 2 issues, but the fact that it seems to be very much like a one night thing has very much recontextualized that for me. Like,
Agree.
instead of being like kind of a wavy image of a narrative, it feels like it's very much like just building to a crescendo, and that crescendo is going to be like a very loud scream, uh, as opposed to being like a kind of, you know, I'm speaking metaphorically, and it doesn't super make sense. But I just
Wow,
want to say
people
that
didn't think you. People definitely thought you were speaking seriously there, Katie. The book was good. The last issue. You were going to turn to the final page, and a voice box was going to play a really loud scream, and that's how this book was going to end.
this man is so mean to me. Anyway, I agree that it's really hit its stride with issue 3. And I'm going to give this issue, I think I'm going to give it another 8 out of 10. I liked it quite a bit. How about you?
I'm gonna go just a little half step above you on this one. I give this one an 8.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed
Nice.
this issue. I thought it was a ton of fun. It looks great. This issue like felt great, which is an
Mm-hmm.
interesting way to put, but it felt great reading it. So yeah, I was big on it. You're gonna lack a little context jumping in on issue 3, but I think Morningstar's done a pretty good job with actually being approachable in every
I
single
agree.
issue. So I'm
I
gonna
can
call
get
this a
on board with
pull-less
that.
wreck. Like, I think you should read the whole series. Like, if you can get the issues, I absolutely think you should read the whole series. But if you're choosing between picking up issue 3 or not reading the series, I would pick up issue 3.
You know what? I'll agree with that. I'll give it a pull list rec as well.
That's an official pull list wreck
And I think our
for
deepest
Morningstar
into a
issue
series
3.
pull list rec. I don't think we've done
Yeah,
one for
yeah.
in issue 3 that's not like, an ongoing.
No, yeah. I was gonna say for ongoings, I think we have,
Our
but for like a
deepest
mini
into an
series,
arc.
I believe
Yeah.
that's true. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, rad. Are we ready to pivot and talk
Pivot,
about
pivot.
pivot indeed to Crocodile Black?
Let's do it.
Crocodile Black number 2. Danny's ego and fascination with Leo climb sky high as he takes a morbid interest in Leo's life, possessions, and living space, all while in the presence of Leo's still rotting corpse. But literally walking in Leo's shoes will inevitably lead to trouble, especially as a man he meets can't help but take a liking to Danny's violent tendencies. The writer here is Philip Kennedy Johnson of Action Comics, Green Lantern, and The Incredible Hulk. The artist is who is Somnath Powell, who's also done Brigands. The colorist is Patricio Del Peche, and the letterer is Becca Carey. Jay, you were pretty psyched up about issue 1.
I thought issue 1 was quite cool. And I'm still the thing that I still think is so cool is the way that this book portrays like Danny's mental state. Like when it's starting to like crack or things are getting weird. Like there's a scene in a bar between him and like he's kind of impersonating the guy who he killed, and like that the way that the dialogue then blends with these cool visuals to kind of show you that Danny's losing it is just really, really cool. So I really like the way that Danny's mental state's illustrated throughout the whole thing. In this issue, I started feeling throughout it like we start following like people investigating what are they dealing? I can't think of the word right now. I'm trying to think of the drug, but I can't.
Cartel.
Think of it right now. Cocaine. Jesus, a cocaine dealer. And I was like, why are we? What does this have to do with anything? I was like, I do not know why we're following these people. And I started losing me a little bit there. It ends up circling back at the end, which retroactively makes me go, okay, I get it. I get why we were doing that. But there's also an amount where I'm like, there's a certain amount that I'm like willing to give you until like I need to kind of know what's going on. And I feel like you were pushing me a little bit on that front. But yeah, I think there's a lot of cool visual stuff here. And I am interested in Danny's kind of arc as a character and his mental arc. And that's what's kind of keeping me engaged. So I thought it was cool. But I'd like a little more plot direction. Little more plot direction.
That's fair. I think that I felt pretty on board with the investigation right away because of the first issue. Like we saw them investigating a murder that Danny committed in the first issue.
Yeah, but like
I just want to double check. He did not kill Leo. He found him dead when he went to go drop off his groceries. Okay, just wanted to clarify that real quick, just to make sure I didn't miss something.
No, he did not kill
Rad.
him.
I think that my problem is that the most interesting thing to me from the first issue was Danny's family dynamic and the like mystery of his brother's death, kidnapping, unclear. Well, kidnapping that led to death. And I think we get nothing of that in this. We have like a series of texts that is his sister being like, hey, can you at least let me bring you your meds? Like, please don't do this, like run away. And I feel like that was really, really missing for me in this because Danny is very interesting. And like you said, the way that his mental decline is like physically illustrated is very interesting and super rad. But I feel like when we're spending too much time just with him, I don't feel like he's super interesting on the page all the time. And some of his mental health stuff feels a little too like Joker smiley, and it's like it's cool and there are parts of it that I really, really like, but so much of like what's happening in the book just isn't really hooking me.
That's fair. I do miss the family. I thought the family dynamic was so good in issue 1. Definitely missing. Hope that comes back around. But yeah, I was quite engaged by most of what was going on the page in this book outside of the investigation, because I was like you said, like, yes, they were investigating his future murder in issue 1, but like seeing them investigate something that I had no idea how it was going to connect to Danny felt a little bit
fair
weird,
enough. And we also spent like a lot of time with the cop on a personal level that didn't feel necessary. That's
what I was like, this just feels like we almost jumped to a different book for some reason, and then like, yes, it connects, which retroactively made me like
Like,
it more than
clearly,
I
if you
did.
want to do something like that, you should just write a whole nother series from the cops' perspective
Yeah,
and release them
that
in
works
tandem.
well.
It
Yeah,
works so.
that works really well. Yeah, yeah.
But do you have a
But
numbered rating for
I
Crocodile Black
do, I
number
do.
two?
I gave this one a 7 out of 10, which I think is lower than I gave issue one. I don't remember. So maybe, but I did. I think I liked this a little bit less than issue one,
Mm-hmm.
just mainly because of the investigation, and I felt like it was a little directionless until the end of the issue, and I think the end of the issue gives it a strong direction. Basically, the
Mm-hmm.
last like 6 or 8 pages. Once he goes into the bar, everything post bar I thought was phenomenal, and I would
Yeah,
love that
I was on board
as
with
a
that.
series. Like that's what I want the series to be going forward. But getting
Mm-hmm.
to that point was a little bit rocky. So 7 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, I gave it a 6 out of 10. I think that a lot of the stuff that carried it for me was the cool ways that the artist on this, Sam, illustrates, like with the we mentioned it being kind of yarn like in the previous issue, but the way that they
Yeah.
illustrate, like you said, the way he's changing mental state. There are some really cool, like, just overlaid visuals that do a lot to make the book feel unique in that way. They just aren't a lot of other things that I think make this book stand out for me. So 6 out of 10. It's cool, just maybe not, what I'm gonna keep on pulling.
Fair enough. Do you want to move on to our actually Polis Rec? I guess is the next thing.
Oh, not from
Um,
me.
we we have to. Uh, I think it's approachable, but I think unfortunately, if you don't have the first issue, I don't know if this issue is really gonna hook you. So I
Mhm.
don't know if I jump on this as a good first issue to read of the series. So I'm gonna withhold it for now. But do you want to talk about Monsters Are My Business? And my business do be bloody.
I do.
Monsters Are My Business, and my business is bloody. Issue number 3. Grizz is a tough as nails bounty hunter. Cuddles is a chainsaw wielding koala. Together they prowl the mean streets of Bogtown, kicking ass and taking names. Now, though, they may have bitten off more than they can chew. They've rescued a monster from the clutches of the howling gargoyles, a monster with an unbreakable connection to an elder deity, and the gargoyles are determined to get their prisoner back. The writer is Cullen Bunn of Green Lantern Lost Army, Ghost Lore, and The Sixth Gun. The artist is Patrick Piazzlanga of Happy Horror Days, Project Patron, and Captain America Forever Allies. The colorist is Marco Bracco, and the letterer is Jim Campbell. We have really enjoyed the first 2 issues of Monsters Are My Business. Katie, how did issue 3 do it for you?
I dig it. It's such a good, like, I feel like I have a lot of similar things to say about this that I did about Giant Robot Hellboy, where it's a good time and it's trying to be a good time. And obviously Giant Robot Hellboy brain fucked us with issue 3, like, flipping things on their head and being like, oh shit, wait, Mignola, you motherfucker. Um, but it's one of those things where it's like, this is supposed to be, there's a koala wielding a chainsaw, and in this issue, a
And a flamethrower now.
flamethrower. Like, it's supposed to be high octane, silly, spongy fun, and it does that so well. Like, everything that it does in here feels like just a joke in the best way. Like, the action scenes don't feel like they pause the humor of the book to happen. Like, we don't suddenly have, like, I don't know, a battle of sorts. We have a silly ass fight scene where someone throws pickle jars at the bad guy, and a koala wears a full, like, flame proof suit to
Like, yeah.
enervate? No, incinerate. Incinerate
Yeah.
weird alien mutants. It's such a good time all the way through, and I feel like that's one of the biggest compliments for the book, is that it maintains such a good, fun tone during every single part of this book. And also, I love Hillary so much. I want more of her constantly, every issue. Give me more Hillary. How'd you
I
feel?
think you really hit on it there. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. It's so much fun. The visuals are all awesome. It looks so
Mm-hmm.
good. I thought this issue was just so good with characterization. Like, it just felt like every character in like one or two lines was like, yep, I know who you are, I know what you're doing, I know what you're about. And just every time somebody spoke, it felt like that, which was awesome. And Cuddles pulls out a flamethrower and a flameproof suit thing, and I literally, I made no, I was like,
And it was his
that
birthday
might be
gift.
the most which was just so fun. The setup, like that was set up as like a standard like setup, delivery joke, and it just worked so well during this fight scene and was so fun. But I wrote in my notes, I was like, that might be the most comic book visual I have ever seen. Like, that is just like the scene of him looking, because he's drawn like he's a badass. Like he's this tiny little koala bear in this flameproof suit who is drawn like he's a freaking badass.
Like,
and
the camera is at his feet, making him look huge.
Like looking up at him with the flames. Like, the artist takes it ridiculously seriously, which is what makes it so funny and awesome. And like, that's something that you really can only do in a comic book. Like, that panel only exists in that form in a comic book, and I love that so much. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this issue. I thought it was so freaking much fun.
It's so fun.
It has so much life to it and energy to it, and it's so enjoyable. Like, I would challenge somebody to pick up an issue of Monsters Are My Business and not have a good time. And if you got to the end not having a good time, I'd question what is wrong with you.
Oh no, it's so fun. It's so fun. Do you have much more to say, or do you want to?
No. If you want to slap a number rating on it, that's.
I think you should slap a number rating. Oh wait, no, I should slap a number rating. No, you're right. I need to slap a number rating.
You tried to pull an Uno reverse on me there.
I sure did. I'm gonna give it a good old 7.5 out of 10. It's like my max cap for stuff that's like, it's fun. Yeah. It's having fun with itself, and it really is. And like you said, there are a few really good like character beat moments in here that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a book that's just fun. And so it really hits that upper echelon of fun books.
I fully agree with you. Basically the exact same thought process. In my mind, top end of the cap of just fun is also 7.5 out of 10. So I'm going to land on that 7.5 out of 10. I think this does goofy fun as well as a comic book can do goofy fun. And yeah, I also think that because it's goofy fun, you can pick up any issue of Monsters Are My Business and have a good goofy fun time. Agreed. So pull this rec from me.
Pull this rec from me as well. Like, it's so episodic.
That's 2 issue 3s that have now gotten an official pull this rec this week. So we're just hitting on good stuff right now.
We're just hitting the good stuff. But the good stuff will continue to roll. Are you ready to talk about Heartpiercer?
Oh, I really, really am. I really, really, really am.
Hell yeah. Heartpiercer, number 2. Tensions run high in the village of Briarglen as it's set upon by an army of the Howler's werewolves. Will the villagers trust Atala to lead them in fighting off the monsters, or throw her, Grost, and Aaron into their slavering jaws? The dark fantasy epic continues right here. The writer is Rich Dueck of TMNT Universe, Edge of Spider-Verse, and Magic: The Gathering. The artist is Gavin Smith of TMNT and Star Trek. The colorist is Nicholas Bergdorf, and the letterer is Justin Birch. Jay, we both were I think we were both a little feral over Heartpiercer 1.
Yes.
How did you feel about issue 2?
This is even better. This is so good. This is so ridiculously good. I really, really love this issue so much. Oh man, it really gets going. Like issue 1 had gotten going, but this issue runs, and it is awesome. And we're introduced to so much of this world that feels so expansive and cool and exciting. And like, there's this kind of looming bird woman future sight threat.
Oh my god, she ate an eyeball.
But it hints at like how vast this world is and how much more there is.
Yes.
And we get that while also getting a more like issue contained plot that obviously will continue, but it gives this issue a nice little arc to it, which is missing from a lot of current indie, miniseries type things. I think this might be an ongoing. We kind of had that conversation where it says volume 1, so it at least seems like there's intentions for this to go
Yes.
longer than just a miniseries, which makes sense with just how much lore they have kind of built up and hinted at, which is super
Absolutely.
exciting. I really thought this issue on its own had just such a strong arc of, it felt good as an issue to read. It didn't feel
Yes.
like I want the next issue because this book has me hyped and I want as much of it as possible, but I felt very satisfied reading this issue. And it had one of those, like kind of raw hero, giving people a speech scenes that usually feel so crappy. And it was just really, really good.
It works
and so
well.
I got hyped with it. I got hyped by the speech. So yeah, I absolutely love this issue on every level. And it had a great issue ender, which is such a great thing to me too. So yeah, I love this. How did you feel, Katie?
I really, really, really love this as well. I feel like dark fantasy is something that I don't normally like gravitate towards, just because I don't know. I think I'm a bit of a silly goose in my deepest corners of my soul, and so like dark fantasy can be very serious, and this is very serious. But it can be hard sometimes for me to take serious things seriously. Kind of like Eden would. I'm like, okay, you're taking yourself very seriously, and I need you to not. But this is. I mean this not as a roast at all. I don't know that there's a single joke in this book. I don't think there's even like stuff that's supposed to be funny in a like situational way. Like there's not room for levity in this book, which I think works so well in a way that a lot of books that try not to have levity sort of fail at when they end up not being able to commit to the tone 100%, or their characters, it's hard to take their characters seriously because they're taking themselves so seriously, and all the pitfalls that can come from the vulnerability and risk of being a distinct tone. And this does it so goddamn well. My only gripe with it is that we learn about the Howler, and I don't remember anything about him from issue 1. Because issue 1 was very front-loaded with, like, world lore. And then we had kind of
it was.
our main character kind of emerge in a new land of sorts, like an unrecognizable place to her. And I was like, am I supposed to know who this is? Because the bird lady kind of talks about him, and I'm like, I don't remember who this is.
I don't think we were supposed to know who he was yet. I think it was just like, I think the intro was more to be like, this is somebody who's important that like now we're being introduced to.
Right, but the bird lady like specifically says to Atala, like calls the man by name, I think. And I was like, I don't know who this wolf man is.
I think it was one of those indications of like, the characters know who he is, and that's like the introduction of the reader is the characters think he's important, so you should then think he's important, and then you'll learn more. That was the vibe I got. Maybe there's something in issue 1 that I'm not remembering, but that was the vibe I got.
No, I'm also very excited for his introduction and to see him next issue. Okay. I'm super hype about it. Yeah, that was literally my only little like bump in the road. Was just like, am I supposed to understand who this man is? But if not, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I think you hit on why I love this book so much. One, I love dark fantasy. One of my favorite genres. As you would know if you follow me at all, one of the creator-owned books I'm trying to do right now is a dark fantasy series because I love dark fantasy. And I like when a book can take itself seriously and do it really well. And that's what this book, I think, is killing it at. It is very serious, and it's very serious, done very well. The last thing I want to hit on, because I can't go through an issue of Heartpiercer without talking about just how damn good Gavin Smith is.
Yes.
Because Gavin Smith does just some of the best interiors you will see in a comic book, and some of the best character designs. The character designing in this book is so ridiculously good. It's just absurd.
It is phenomenal. This book has such an identity right away. And that is truly one of the greatest compliments that I can give to a book.
Yeah, I really hope this just goes and goes, because this really feels like a series that will have so much legs to it.
And she uses a unicorn horn as a sword. How fucking badass.
It's so metal. It's
awesome. So metal. But do you have a numbered rating to throw upon this book?
I do. I got a number rating, and it's quite high. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. This is a very, very good comic book, and I
Hell
would
yeah.
recommend anybody, because you can jump on here. I read issue 1. You should read issue 1. But if you can't read issue 1, read issue 2. Read this book. It's good.
Yes. Yeah, I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's one of those things where, like, because it's your like wheelhouse of genre,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
gonna have those extra legs for you. But as someone who
Yeah.
wouldn't normally consider this my wheelhouse of genre, it's an 8.5. That is phenomenal. I am so digging it. I'm so into it.
It's so
I don't
good.
know. I don't think I would call issue 2 a pull list track. I think that it would be a little disorienting to jump in at issue 2. Like, I think you could, but I really don't think that you should.
That's fair. That's fair. I think if you can get issue 1, get issue 1, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's an awful place to step onto the ride. But no, that's a fair judgment.
Yeah. And it's issue 2.
We
You
got
can
one
find
more
issue 1.
Yeah, you can find issue 1. We got one more book for this week. Aint No Grave can hold this body down. Let's go. Aint No Grave, number 2. Ryder seeks out death in the city of Cyprus, but quickly realizes that death is on the hunt for her as well. She's a wanted woman, and every bullet in this dark place is looking to put her in a grave. The writer is Scotty Young of I Hate Fairland, Middle West, The Me You Love in the Dark, and Rocket Raccoon. The artist is Jorge Corona of Middle West, The Me You Love in the Dark, Nightwing, and The Flash. The colorist is Jean-Francis Bellew? Francois Bellew. And the letter is Nate Picos. Katie, we loved issue 1. Damn, we loved issue 1. It was an oversized issue. This is not an oversized issue. How'd you like issue 2?
It was okay. I like this so much. This book is this book is so up my alley.
You're just a little Western girl.
I'm just a little Western girl living in a little Western world. Like, Jorge Corona, you absolute legend. The action in these books, the way that they have like multiple like mob fight scenes in this, like there are mobs of enemies, and everyone feels so dynamic. Every piece of action. You were talking about with Monsters Are My Business, how like it feels very like that shot of Cuddles felt very uniquely comic book. I feel like the way that Jorge Corona draws has an energy that is very like uniquely comic book, like the incredibly exaggerated movements and proportions. Like you can pull that off in animation, but I don't even think most of them go as far as it does in this, where everything is just like billowing sleeves and wrinkled jackets and, you know, strange eye lines and stuff. And it's all so goddamn well done. And that's just the art. The writing is phenomenal too. Ryder is such a badass in every single way you want a cowboy to be a badass. We see a flashback of her doing a fucking train heist whilst pregnant. Astounding.
Also, just the transition into that flashback, so good.
Yes.
So good.
Oh my god.
So good.
Like, here's the thing.
And I love
Wanted posters are just so inherently cool. Like, they just are. The way they look, every bit of like cultural context around them, it's all so badass and cool, and they make it even more badass and cool in this goddamn book. And her entire like escape the movement on the page is really what just keeps getting me every single time. Like, I pulled up into a random page and there was like fucking 20 fucking panels on a goddamn spread of combat. Like, it's absurd the like grace with which Scotty Young and Jorge Corona choose their like panel beats, like what they physically put on a panel, works so well. And just holding this page.
Contrast, you have pages that are like, you know,
right?
3 panels or a splash or whatever, you know.
And to shout out the entire fucking team, fucking Jean-Francois Bellew, look at just from an eagle eye view the coloring on this page, the way that they work with like contrast and just like contrasting colors specifically, not even just like dark and light. this book is so phenomenal, and I love the writing, I love the plot, I love the characters, but the art is just some of my favorite in recent books.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway,
you hit on
you
most
talk
of the
now.
notes there. Yeah, I think the overarching thing about this book, and you summed up all the elements, but because of all that, because of how well the team works together, because of how great the art is, because of the risks and the things that they do to lean into the comic book style, like it just has this really really cool vibe to it that just makes you buy into everything. Like when you're in this
Hmm.
book, you're in this book, and it really gets you like that, which is fantastic. Um, you meant I mentioned the flashbacks during your thing. I love flashbacks. Flashbacks are such a good way to like deliver this backstory to us in a way that isn't obnoxious. So I
Hmm.
love that. It was great. It was also just I think the best scene in the book in a general. Like it just
Yes.
was so well orchestrated. It gave us such a good insight into who her character was, so we can see who her character is, and like the fact that she's kind of willing to be that person again because of what she needs to be, which is just really good storytelling. And there's a conversation that she has with I
The
don't know who
dude
the
in
lad
like the
really
the
is.
rigging.
Yeah. About like going after death, and one, it just like it's one of those things in comic books, which is if the reader's going to ask a question and you can answer that question in the book in like
Hmm.
a way that isn't exposition, it's just so great. It's like, well, if you could just go and threaten death, why haven't other people done that? Oh wait, no, they have. And here's that being addressed, that she's not unique or special or perfect for being the first person to ever think of like challenging
Hmm.
death. It's like great. Love that that's addressed. Love that we got that conversation. The dialogue in that conversation was phenomenal. And it
Hmm.
really, really
The
helped me
dialogue is
kind of
so
place
good.
myself in what this world is like. I'm going to hit a slight gripe that's actually kind of like a Morningstar gripe, which
Hmm.
is that the issue ender of issue one was a little bit fake, you
That's
know?
fair.
It, like I get that it was like kind of the vibe is still true that she's going after that, but that panel of her like looking out at the giant death is not actually where we
Death
were.
is
They're
still
like we
far
went
away.
somewhere else. Yeah,
We still have
but
to
like
get to death.
I get it. Selling issue ender, great. That's my slightest of gripes. Is just that we're not actually really there, and that was a
That's super
little
fair.
bit of a false thing. But I still love this book. I think this
So
is awesome.
good. Phenomenal. Well, I have a numbered rating, and it's very high. I gave
Yeah,
this bad boy a
yeah.
9.5 out of 10. I this
Wow. So we're
Here's the thing. I think that I'm just gonna have like a pet series at any given time where I'm just like,
yeah,
yes, this is my
yeah,
favorite
and
child.
it's
And
gonna be a western a lot of the time.
look, are we counting Zorro as a Western? It's close enough.
Kind of.
That's so
It's
fair.
close
No,
enough.
that's
It's
valid.
close enough.
It's close enough that it
It's
counts.
gonna be a book where the main character rides a horse at any given time. Um,
Perfect. And so this book just has become my new pet series where I'm like, okay, yeah, this this book is doing it.
it's great. It's great. It's absolutely great.
What is your
I'm
numbered
not
rating?
quite where you are.
That's valid.
I gave this an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's just the reverse of the last book where it's like
Yeah.
it's not westerns aren't really my thing,
Hmm.
but I really do enjoy this book because it's just a really good comic book. And when you're reading a comic book, you kind of can break through that,
Exactly.
medium type thing. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think because it's your type of book, you'll be a little bit more,
Exactly.
particularly
Yeah.
suited to give it a higher number. I'm gonna say something here though, which I fully think is the case. You are doing yourself a huge, huge disservice if you read this without reading issue
Yes.
one. Like
Absolutely.
to
Issue
the
one is
point that I would
phenomenal.
feel
What
like
are
it
you
would be
even doing?
malpractice to have you read issue one. But just like I think the emotional stakes that are so necessary for this book, while some of
Hmm.
it is built on here, I think issue one is so ridiculously necessary to get that emotional setup
Yes.
for the series that I think it'd be malpractice to tell anybody to read issue two without reading issue one.
Podcast malpractice.
Yeah, yeah, small we'll have a podcasting license revoked.
Oh no. All of those years at podcast school.
Yeah, yeah.
No, yes, I agree with you. This is not a pull list rec. Keep fucking issue one. It's so good. And it's a Scotty Young book. Your comic shop has it.
Yeah, yeah. Almost.
It's an
Weirdly, my
image
comic
Scotty
shop
Young
didn't
book.
have issue one. I had to order it from Midtown when because my one store didn't have it, and then I came back here and they didn't have any copies left when I came back to my other store.
Well,
So I had
there's
to
your only threat. is
order.
people like it too much because it's too good.
But you can order from Midtown because Midtown always
There you
has
go.
like everything. So yeah.
Easy peasy. There you go. Why haven't you read issue 1 yet, dear listener?
What's wrong with you?
What's wrong? With you?
Why haven't you read Aint No Grave, Morning Star, Heartpiercer?
I like
those
it's
books.
just the one
What's wrong
from
with
this
you?
week.
Yeah.
We have a wonderful guest with us on the podcast this week.
That's right.
In the Creator Corner, we're going to be joined by Reed Hinckley-Barnes. Let's go chat with Reed.
Let's do it. So for today's Creator Corner, we are joined by Reed Hinckley-Barnes, comic book writer and letterer. He has worked on some of his own books like Hero of Legend, Into the Deep, and Super Time Travel Agency, and he has also lettered like every Kickstarter book out there. Tights, Worlds Away, I Summoned Cthulhu to fund my Kickstarter, Control Z, and many, many more. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode, Reed.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so to get right into it here, we always start with the same question for guests, which is, what got you into comics in the first place? What got you to start making comics in the first place? How did you take that step?
Yeah, so I feel like I have a very specific memory of the first time that I started reading comics, which is I was in like middle school and I went to a comic book shop with my dad, and the guy that was working at the comic book shop upsold my dad to buy the nice hardcover volume of the first 18 issues of Runaways. And since that was like gateway into comics, I started reading all sorts of other stuff. I have loved comics ever since then, and I know that that's when I first got into comics, but I can't think of a time that I didn't want to be making comics. That's pretty much always been something that I wanted to do. Comics are just kind of like, it was always the thing. Like I've done other stuff in my life, but comics were always the thing that I wanted to be doing.
Right.
That's super rad. So Hero of Legend is a Kickstarter running right now. There are going to be 2 days left as of the publishing of this episode, so get over there. But it started as a webcomic, if I'm not mistaken. What had you jump into Kickstarter for the physical version?
Yeah. So it's also going to be continuing as a webcomic. So even if people don't hop on the Kickstarter, they can read the upcoming like parts of the book on my website as we go along. Part of what I wanted to do with Hero of Legend is I'm trying to figure out how to make comics in a way that's sustainable, which without a publisher is hard. I know just as like someone who both works on the side of like being the writer on books and works on the side of being a letterer. When you're the writer of a book, like you're in charge of like finding the money to make that happen. And so part of what I wanted to do with Hero of Legend was figure out ways to make it so that that's sustainable for me to be able to keep doing that, but also be able to not just drop an issue and then have like a year pass in between being able to do the next one. And so it started off as a webcomic where I do like monthly short, like 5 to 10 page chunks of it, and then moved to the Kickstarter. And that was kind of my plan going into it, is that I wanted to write it so that hopefully it both works as a webcomic in those like monthly chunks and as an issue, and hopefully if we ever get there as the full like trade for it as well.
Right. Good place to throw in that you sent us a copy, and I read it a few hours ago. It's fantastic. So absolutely should check it out. But I think I liked how you have in there, you still have the chapter breaks from the webs, like you have a little chapter, so it was nice to see how it was broken up as a webcomic, and I think it works very well in the I guess not collected, single issue format as well.
It is kind of, I mean, that's kind of the way I was thinking about it when I was writing it, was kind of like the way that people think about like, oh, I'm writing each issue and then having that collected into the trade. Right. I was kind of doing that same thing, but just on a much like tighter, smaller area.
Yeah, it does feel like it. So. But yeah, something I want to talk about with there, obviously with this, maybe it's because this was a webcomic first, but it also applies to when you ran Into the Deep, which was the, I think, last Kickstarter you did before this. But it feels like you have relatively like more manageable, lower number goals than a lot of Kickstarters you see pop up. Hero of Legend is $1,500 if I'm not mistaken, which you recently hit, and Into the Deep I think was 2,000. You see a lot of Kickstarters that go $5, $6, $7,000. How do you keep your costs so manageable? Or maybe you eat a lot of the costs, but how do you keep the Kickstarter numbers so manageable?
Yeah. No, I think that's a great question. The Kickstarters are basically just for printing and shipping out the books.
Okay.
The rest of the costs are I am kind of eating those. The way that I have my life set up right now is that most of the work that I do, I letter a lot of books, and pretty much all of the money that I get from lettering ends up being funneled back into making my own comics. And so I kind of have a little system there where it's like, oh, this money isn't stuff that I need to be using to pay rent or buy food. I can use it to make comic books. And so I know, like, just being realistic, like I don't have that huge of a following yet. And so I want my Kickstarters to succeed. I want to be able to make that happen. And so I set the goal at where I need it to be. I need to be able to get the money to be able to print it out, but other costs associated with it, I've budgeted it out so that I can manage that.
No, that's super awesome. And I
Makes
think,
a lot of sense.
like you said, that makes it a very kind of sustainable way of making comics for yourself. That's super, super rad. But Hero of Legend is inspired by The Legend of Zelda. I can only assume you have a strong tie to it. Did you grow up playing the Zelda games? What inspired you from that to make Hero of Legend?
Oh, so yeah, I love all of the Zelda games. They are, if I had to like rank my top video games of all time, like at least whatever, 3 or 4 out of 5 of them would probably be Zelda games, unless I was trying to stick some other things in there. So Hero of Legend specifically was inspired by Breath of the Wild in particular, which I absolutely love. I think it's a fantastic game. I spent like 200 hours or something in it when it first came out. But part of what is in Breath of the Wild is there's this like real sense of like melancholy in the game, and there's this feeling of like being a hero who has failed in some ways, and that was a big theme that I kind of wanted to pull on in Hero of Legend. I also, like, when I was younger, I was really into this is kind of silly, but before Nintendo released an official timeline for The Legend of Zelda, there were people on forums like debating like, oh, what order are the games supposed to go in? How does it make sense? And it just doesn't make sense because like they didn't care. Like they weren't doing it, they weren't making it on purpose in a way that was supposed to make sense. But part of what that leads to is there's like all of this this like interesting stuff around like, oh, cycles of things and like how are things happening, and like this like consistent like, oh, there's this battle of good and evil and it keeps happening over and over and over again. And that was something that I like isn't really a textual part of a lot of the Zelda games. Like it's not super a bit of it that like, oh, the games themselves are actually interested in, but it's something that I think is really interesting. Ideas of like destiny and ideas of stories, and like destiny kind of being a story that is being told to you by someone else, and you find out whether or not it's going to come true or not.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
such
Very well
deep
said.
nerddom.
Oh yes, very, very much so. Absolutely.
No, I think that comes across a lot reading it, because it's such a, and let me try to formulate this into a question, but it's such like a big world in such a small, because obviously you've only done an issue so far, you've only done whatever it is, 30 pages or maybe a little less than 30 pages. But it's this huge world, it seems, with all these cool fantasy elements, and it seems like you have a very clear idea of how things work in this world. So how do you go about building kind of a large world when the story, at least for a time, has to remain, kind of smaller in length?
Yeah, no, I don't know if I have a good answer to that question. I think it's part of it is that I think that's something that I'm really interested in the stuff that I read and watch and all that kind of stuff. I really like things that have world building, but not necessarily things that are just world building. I'm really interested in stories that have like, oh, they take place in a different world and they give you like a corner of that world, and you can feel like there's this whole big world, but it's not necessary to then go read like whatever hours of wiki pages to then understand.
Right.
And so that's definitely something that I try to bring into my work. When I write stuff, I'm very kind of methodical about the way that I write things. Before I get started on anything, I have everything very much broken down piece by piece, and I think that lets me have a pretty good sense of like what the world actually is that the story is taking place in. But I also make sure to like leave little like areas to like play in there as well. Like a lot of the stuff that I put into the story, I think it just comes up as you're writing it as well. Like there'll be a moment where it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about this, and just kind of it comes as you're writing the story.
Yeah, you said you didn't have a good answer. I think that was a great answer.
Well, that hey, that's like one of those bits in the empty spaces in the outline where you just kind of have to dive into
it. Yes. But Pippa, we talked about your writing process a little bit. I want to talk about your lettering because you are such a prevalent letterer in indie comics, and maybe because I didn't mention this at the top of the episode because we talked about it right before we started recording, and then I guess it slipped my mind. We met because you were lettering a book that I had written several years ago. So I can firsthand advocate you to anybody listening. If you need a letterer, Reed is the best letterer in indie comics. Fantastic talent. But you do such a great job of like tailoring the lettering to the story, to the feel of a book. So how do you approach like being the letterer on a book and what your role is to that story?
Yeah, I think lettering is I think the process of making a lettering style for a book is probably my favorite part of doing the lettering. And a lot of the things that I'm like paying attention to are when you get the artwork for the first time, looking at like what kind of lines is the artist using, what kind of colors are the colorist using, and then like what is the writer bringing into the script? Like, is there a specific style of captions that they maybe want to have there? I think that I completely lost my train of thought.
The style of the
I think
book
a lot
influencing
of it,
the style of the lettering. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And I think that's one of it's really easy to letter a book poorly. I think lettering is probably the easiest job of making a comic book to like get started with. It's part of why I started being a letterer, because I was looking at making comics and I was like, I want to write my own books, but I don't have any money. And so what of these things can I do? I can't really draw super well. I tried coloring for a little bit, and it takes me like 3 days to color a page poorly. But lettering is a thing that like you can get started on, and you can do it badly, really badly. But you can just download a program that can handle vectors and then just get started on it. I think the thing that like if you're really committed to doing lettering, that you have to do is you have to take the time to like be really intentional in the stuff that you're doing, thinking about all of these like individual pieces of it and making sure that it works. And I don't know, that's something that I think I'm okay at. I think that's the other reason that I do a lot of lettering, is because it's the thing that I started trying and I was like, oh, this might make sense to me. It clicks in my brain in a way that other aspects of making the art for comics did not.
Yeah, no, Jay and I have said that time again about lettering in books and even coloring as well. When it's done with intention, it just elevates it that much more. And it really makes such a big difference for books. But when you are kind of in control of the art in terms of picking the artist as the writer of a book, does your approach to lettering change at all? Like when you are the one in the writer's chair as well?
So the real thing is that I'm far more annoying with edits that I make than I would ever be to anyone else who's lettering a book. Like I basically rewrite all of the pages on the page as I'm lettering them, and go through and will like make like the most like minor changes that like I would be absolutely annoyed if someone like asked me to do some of the things that I go in and do on my own books when I'm lettering them, because I'm like, oh no, this like I want like I'm gonna choose a shorter word here because I want the like bubble to look a little bit better and like things like that, where I really feel like when I'm lettering my own books, that feels less like lettering and more like part of the writing process for me, because most of the books that I work on, I end up, I really like working with a single artist. I really like working with someone who's willing to like also do the coloring, so that it's just kind of like the two of us. And so when I worked with Felipe Trinidad, I've actually never had to say his last name out loud before, but he was the artist on Into the Deep and did an amazing job, but he also colored the whole book. And then Nicolo Aleppi, who is the artist for Hero of Legend. I really like having the kind of like bumper of like, I wrote these words, and then this artist has brought them to life in their own way, and then I get to then go and have the final touch on these words and make sure that they're on the page in a way that makes sense with what I was trying to say at the beginning of the process.
No, love that.
Yeah. Awesome. And just think that's as good a place as any to shout. I believe you have a tier of your Kickstarter where you will letter somebody's book, right? That's the thing that you have. So,
absolutely,
if anybody's looking for a letterer, get into the Hero of Legend Kickstarter, and you can get the best in the biz right here, Reed Hinckley-Barnes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you
come check it out.
But you've talked about the fact that you are planning to continue Hero of Legend as a webcomic moving forward. Do you have kind of a set endpoint in mind right now? Like, is it you're going to do this much, or is it just going to keep going as long as you can?
Yeah, so it is 6 issues is what I have planned. If there is, there's always the possibility for something to happen after that, maybe, but like 6 issues is a hard, like I have an ending in mind. I haven't written the scripts all the way through, but like I know where the story ends. I have a really hard time writing anything if I don't know where the story ends. I'm in awe of people who are able to do like monthly books in the direct market where it's like, oh, this is just going on for whoever knows how long and we'll get somewhere eventually. I'm just like, my brain cannot process in that way.
Oh, same.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Gotta have that outline.
Yeah, you're talking to 2 crazy outliners here, especially Katie.
Oh, yeah.
Katie's outlines are absolutely absurd.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey.
Look, we love an outline. We love to know what's happening. I edit it down when I write it, so it's fine.
See, I have a whole. I go from yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No, you.
So I was just gonna, my outline. I also am pretty like I haven't seen any of your outlines, Katie, but I'm pretty intensive on mine as well. I like very much like break down beat by beat, whole story, break it down page by page, the whole like write it all out and then write it all again in the actual script.
Kindred spirits, certainly. But if you were to edit down your outline of Hero of Legend to create just like a quick sell or an elevator pitch for it, why should people back this Kickstarter? What are they getting into?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hero of Legend is a fantasy adventure for fans of The Legend of Zelda. It is a story about destiny, about stories. 100 years ago, the destined hero that was supposed to save the entire land from evil lost. And this story takes place in the aftermath of that hero losing. It follows Soa, who is a young woman who has spent her entire life living in the ruins of the world that has come before. And she ends up meeting a strange, mysterious, roguish young man who lost my train of thought again. I'm messing it up right in the middle of the pitch. But no, she runs into a young man who has a mysterious backstory and is connected to the ancient hero. So it's a story, like I said, it's inspired by The Legend of Zelda. There's a lot of really fun action in it, and it's a story about like thinking about what you're supposed to be in the world and how you can affect the world around you.
Well
phenomenal.
said.
And that Kickstarter is closing out this coming Friday on the 21st, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the Kickstarter is ending on the 21st, though also Kickstarter has recently made it so that you can have late pledges. So if people see this after the Friday and before when I've shipped books out, you might still be able to get a physical copy.
Phenomenal.
Very cool.
And if you're
So if you're watching this as it comes out, couple days, do it right now.
If you're watching it as it comes out, you can back it. If you're watching it next year, probably not.
No, you can stop by the webcomic.
Yes, absolutely.
And support it in its next Kickstarter as well to get issue 2 into a physical form. Super, super rad.
But yeah, is there anything else you want to tell people for, to find you on any books maybe that you have coming up, either lettering or writing, anything else you want to plug before we wind our Creator Corner to a close?
I think just my website, reedhinckley-barnes.com. You can follow my newsletter there where you can get the new episodes of Hero of Legend straight into your inbox, and my monthly newsletter where I talk about all the books that I've recently lettered. To be honest, the process of when I letter things and when things are on Kickstarter is so I have no idea what is currently on Kickstarter except for my book. But you can find out all the stuff that I'm working on there, and you can follow me on all of the millions of different social platforms that exist now at Reed.
Yeah, we'll link all your socials.
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
No, you can tell them too, because there might be some people who are just listening to this. So tell them, but there will also be links in the description. But you can tell them.
Yeah, so pretty much everywhere, Reed_HB. I only post basically on Twitter, but I'm on all the other ones too.
Right, and yeah, check out your newsletter, because you had, I believe in your last one, just an awesome rundown of why the Hellboy collected editions suck.
I did, yeah. You know what? Hey, yeah. Read my newsletter. I talk about all of my minor gripes with collected editions of various comics.
Well, phenomenal. Thank you so much for joining us on this fine Creator Corner read. I can't wait to get our physical copies of Hero of Legend.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you again to Reed Hinckley-Barnes for coming on the podcast today. We love having guests on. And don't forget to check out Hero of Legend. 2 days left if you're watching this on Wednesday. It's coming to an end on Friday, the 21st of June. So make sure that you slip in there. And hey, if you're looking for a letterer, remember there's that tier where Reed will letter your book. So, 2 birds, 1 stone. You get a letterer and an awesome comic. But thank you, Reed, for coming on. Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Thank you so much, Reed.
But if we don't see him again soon, we'll at least see you again soon, dear listener. Because we have...
Not after
that. Look, are you telling me that you think I alienate our listeners with my personality?
That's basically what I said.
Okay, well, fuck you. Listeners, to prove Joseph wrong, tune in this Saturday. We're going to be putting up a bonus episode of Local Man. We're going to be pretty much catching up. We're going to be doing Local Man 1 through 9, as well as Local Man Gold. And then on our own, we're going to read Neon Girls and number 10. I suppose if we like it, we will do that. But yeah, hopefully we'll be just adding that to the pull list as well, so we can keep chugging along with Mr. Tim Seeley.
Yep, and of course, if you aren't interested in that bonus episode, or even if you are, we will have our regularly scheduled programming coming out on next Wednesday. And the polls for that week, we've got The Displaced number 5, The One Hand number 5, Ultimate Spider-Man number 6, and a new Mad Cave title called Galaxy of Madness that we will be starting up.
This is going to be a crazy one, because I think that's the end of The Displaced and the end of The One Hand.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yeah.
Obviously, we still have the Six Fingers to end off the One Hand saga. Yes. But yeah, a couple of our favorite books coming to an end. I'm glad we have Aint No Grave and Heartpiercer that have just started up to kind of even out things.
And hopefully Galaxy of Madness and Volume 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man will kick some ass as well.
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in this week. And as always, we'll see you next week. Comic Geeks. All right. Okay, he's still laughing. He's chortling away.
I'm sorry. I'm
All right,
sorry.
are you ready? Are you ready? Let's hit
Yes,
the
I'm ready.
you ready to
I'm
do
ready.
the fruit?
I'm ready.